Reality. 21st century reality. How reality changes with changing technological innovations. Now, most of you have heard the word algorithm, and I'm sure most of you are aware of what it means. It's basically originally a mathematical term, and it's used to describe a procedure to tackle a mathematical problem in a finite number of steps. So I'll repeat that again. It's a procedure to tackle a mathematical problem in a finite number of steps. Algorithms. ALGORITHM. That's what an algorithm is. So what's that got to do with us, and what's got to do with the 21st century? Well, the way people perceive reality, although reality is the same, but the way it's perceived and the way it's explained and the way we rationalise it is to a significant degree determined by those who exercise power. So if you look at human history, before the invention of writing, reality was defined to a significant degree in groups by the elders, because the elders had the experience and had gained knowledge over a period of years regarding the environmental factors which determined the survival of the group, the tribe, the clan. That was their reality, and obviously people explain that reality in various ways. And if you look at First Nations people around the world, each has got their own creation myth, as we have in the Western world. We have our creation myths, but somehow we think they're not myths. So one of the major steps in determining reality and breaking the stranglehold that those who exercised power, whether it was hereditary power or power they were able to acquire through their monopoly on the use of force, was broken by the introduction of the printing press in the 16th century, or the late 15th century. The printing press. What the printing press did is it broke down the need to rely on people with acquired knowledge, whose knowledge was in their heads and in the oral traditions of the groups they belonged to. That knowledge was placed down on paper, and it was able to be disseminated across the globe. And what we saw with the world taking up the printing press and education becoming an important component of the economic process because of industrialisation and the necessity for ordinary people to acquire that knowledge to use those new machines, what we saw is that ideas which would have been unimaginable, which describe people's reality beyond their everyday experiences, gained hold. And that's when we saw the period called the Enlightenment, the period of revolution, periods of reform. It was a printing press which allowed the production of material which could be disseminated. The printing press was a decentralised technology, and that's where its strength lay in terms of disseminating ideas. In time, anybody could set up a printing press. Anybody could actually disseminate their vision of reality, or how they experienced reality at that particular point in time, and formulate solutions for what they believed were problems which faced them as individuals and as communities and even sovereign nation states. Now, it didn't take long for those in authority to realise that attempts to outlaw the printing press and attempts to censor ideas were difficult to implement, because knowledge became like the ocean, but it was decentralised. The next phase we saw in human history was something which is maybe in the experience of many of the people, watching this YouTube presentation. The next phase was cameras. People were able for the first time in the 19th century to actually document what they saw through pictures. And when you combine pictures and the printing press, what you had was a powerful tool. A powerful tool in terms of bringing messages to the people you wanted to bring messages to, and to redefine reality, the reality you were experiencing. Because that reality you're experiencing wasn't experienced through somebody who had the authority or the power to shape that reality. What the photograph and printing press did is it democratised our view of reality and of options that we as human beings could pursue. When the printing press and the camera were joined by movies and documentaries, which were able, in moving form initially and in talking form later on, black and white initially and in colour later on, every aspect of our understanding of reality around the world was able to be presented to us in a relatively rapid manner. A 24-hour news cycle, maybe a 48-hour news cycle. And the atrocities which occurred in Vietnam and the atrocities we've seen in Gaza were able to be documented and disseminated because of this new technology. But this new technology was, to a significant degree, although there are sections which monopolised, like the legacy printed media, monopolised debate, what this new technology did, it actually broke the back of those who defined reality for us to protect their interests and to ensure they continue to exercise power. It gave us that opportunity to question that authority. Because although the legacy printed media, the newspaper world, was highly centralised, the fact is individuals and groups could still use technology to define their reality, and more importantly, to find solutions to the problem they faced. Our next technological innovation is something you're all familiar with, and that's why you're watching this YouTube, is the digital age. Now, the digital age was welcomed as the great equalising force in terms of people being able to define their reality and work out solutions to resolve the issues they faced. And when it first came on the scene in the late 1980s and the 1990s, it was seen as a decentralised platform which broke the back of the barons, the media barons. It broke that platform. Now, this is a two-horse race. While technology was giving the ability of people to access their reality in real time, the problem arose both in the Western world and the liberal democratic world and the non-liberal democratic world. The problem arose that the platforms which were created to disseminate this information became the sole property of the state, as we see in communist China, or the sole property of a handful of monopolies, as we see in the so-called Western liberal democratic world. So the circle, the clock has been turned back. The clock has been turned back from oral history to written history to visual documentation to the digital revolution. We have seen the centralisation of knowledge. More importantly, the ability of platforms, virtual platforms, digital platforms, which are owned by the state or individuals or duopolies, now means that our understanding of the reality we face is once again being managed by a minuscule minority. And this is done by the goose that lays the golden eggs, the algorithm. And remember what I said an algorithm is. It's basically, initially, its original definition is an algorithm was designed to be able to solve a mathematical problem in a finite number of steps. And that's the key, finite number of steps. Algorithms are designed to draw people's eyes to platforms, because we are now the product. We are not the consumers. We are the product. The platforms consume every aspect of our being, and through algorithms which change constantly, some which are designed by human beings working for these monopolies of the state, and others which are designed by artificial intelligence. The whole purpose of the algorithm is to draw our eyes to that particular platform. And in the private sector, is to draw our eyes to that platform to make money for the advertisers which flock to these new platforms because it gives them access to an unimaginable marketplace. At the same time, the state, through the use of algorithms, and the more authoritarian the state, the more algorithms are required to get people to see reality in the same way as those who exercise authority, whether it's economic authority or political authority. The role of virtual platforms is to maintain the status quo, which is based on creating ever-increasing profits for a shrinking minority, or to enhance the power of a smaller number of people in society. So we are faced with a tyranny much greater than a feudal system, but we are faced with a tyranny of distribution, where what we're allowed to distribute is to a significant degree determined by algorithms which are designed to draw our eyes to a particular site in order to maximise the profits of the owners of that platform and those people who advertise on those platforms. So the more outrageous the statements, whether you agree with them or not, the more outrageous our definition of reality, the greater the number of hits to that particular site. The greater the number of hits, the greater the tyranny of distribution. So what we are seeing is the creation of virtual silos where people, through the use of algorithms, which are not designed to solve a mathematical problem in a finite number of steps, but which are designed to lure you to particular sites in order to believe in the propaganda which they're spouting at that particular point in time, or become enmeshed in some type of economic exchange which normally leaves you the loser. So this is the 21st century dilemma. The virtual platforms, and in many regards recently driven by artificial intelligence, where there is no longer any human intervention in the creation of these ever-changing algorithms which are designed to make the product you dependent on the platform, but more importantly designed for you to accept their definition of reality and accept their solutions to the problems we face. And as the algorithms draw us deeper and deeper and deeper into these virtual silos where we only hear one opinion, one voice, we see what happens in the real world. We see how reality can be manipulated in a virtual moment in order to support ideas and movements and concepts which have nothing to do with the reality of the majority of people, which have nothing to do with the reality we face every day, but everything to do with enhancing the power and wealth of a shrinking minority. And that's why in the 21st century we face the very real problems that were faced in a feudal society where everybody had their role and nobody was able to leave that role without dire consequences. So that is the dilemma. Although we have exceptional technology, it is now centralised. It's owned and operated by the state, as we see in authoritarian sovereign nation states, or it's owned and operated by individuals or monopolies or duopolies, as we see in sovereign nation states which are based on the principle of private investment for private profit. So we are at the verge of a new world, a brave new world, as Adolf Huxley said, a brave new world which is based on control of every aspect of our existence, but more importantly, a brave new world which creates a reality which has nothing to do with the reality we face on a day-to-day basis, but everything to do with the creation of institutions and political movements and social movements which enhance the power of those who control these new platforms. The tyranny of the algorithm is directly related to the fact that this is a highly centralised technology which requires platforms which are hard to build by individuals, unlike the printing press, unlike the camera, unlike the documentary which can be shot with a camera. So think about it. Your reality, is it based on resolving the issues you face? Or is your reality a creation, a myth, which has nothing to do with what's happening around you? Are you nothing more than food to be consumed by these new virtual platforms in order to maximise the profits and power of a shrinking number of people?